So I thought to start this off, we would talk about what it's like as a medium and our interpretations of the information coming through and what we overhear from spirit and how then we have to like transfer that to make sense, and then what happens after readings and if we get lingering going on,
Or
and
building
if we catch
beforehand.
even more information of like their own family like talking shit. And kind of going in with like not naming names, but just talking about being a medium and what it's like on that, what happens after the reading for a medium. And then I thought we would talk about funny stories of like overhearing just in passing random conversations spirits are having, not realizing we can hear them. So, Kara, out of those topics, the first one being how you interpret
I think
during
that they all pretty
a
much
reading.
kind of range across they all kind of hit the same overall category or overarching category. And it's just like communication. And how does that work for you? Or how does that work for me? And
Mm-hmm.
it's so, I love this because I obviously like play a lot in communication with the divine, or with spirit or with anything, with energy. I have a hard time coming to terms with, I don't know, the notion of like catching something that you weren't supposed to catch, because I feel like that, because I there are times where I've had moments where I'm like, I wasn't supposed to see this. Like, I definitely was not supposed to see that. But then looking back, they're like, oh yeah, are you sure? I mean, you seem okay. And I'm like, what? And everything has to, because that's, like, that's like that fey part of me where everything has to be like very like, oh, are you sure about that? Hmm, you seem pretty confident there. How confident do you really, like, this notion that that the narrative will bend, uh, and fit whatever it is that you're happening with right now. And I think that that's kind of how it works, and that's one of the reasons why communication is so exciting, because once you realize that you're kind of like going to college for the thing that you never thought to follow or learn, and instead of like understanding that like, this is when you're going to take this class, and this is after you learn this fundamental stuff, this is when you're going to learn this stuff, and it's not like that at all.
Right.
So, and that is like another part of like how we can, that's another part of how we can look at communication in general, because the way we communicate, it's part of like, oh my gosh, I'm totally losing my train of thought. The guys are like, hey, you know what, actually slow down, because we want to touch more on this. And so it's funny because there's always a reason, because you allow that there to always be a reason, because there needs to always be a reason, because that's what you're working on right now. And once you find the reason, it won't satisfy anymore, and you will have a new reason, and that's what you will be working on then. And I think that that's part of that, like, being a forever student thing,
Mm-hmm.
is if you are conversing with mediums, I'm sorry, if you are a medium and you're conversing with like ghosts or spirits or the divine or what, you are an eternal student, like, period. That doesn't,
I agree
yeah.
that there's room for interpretation. I agree that there's a foundational ever growing expansion to like, it's like you get started with a starter pack, but then your starter pack gets an upgrade and then that gets an upgrade, and sometimes you go through upgrades at different speeds. You might stay at one level for a while before graduating onto another, or continuing development, or styles may change, or your clear abilities, like what you started off being really strong with, you may shift and be more, instead of being clear seeing, clairvoyant, being better with like clear audio, like clear hearing. So,
or that you like, there are some things that you work better for you when you're not focused as much on this other aspect, or when you are allowing for this other aspect. So it's just kind of like, I like to look at it as, oh gosh, I have so many metaphors, like just I'm like, how do I look at it? Maybe like going to the gym and you're working out, and like say you're doing something at the gym and you're focusing on individual muscle mass. Okay, great. You're making those individual muscles larger. Well, now you've decided to like dip into calisthenics. Those are different muscle types, but you're still like using them, right? You're
mm,
you're balancing, you're learning X, Y, and Z that has to do with calisthenics. And then when you go back from, when, like, let's say you go from there and introduce cardio, you're using an entirely new muscle group, even though there's plenty of overlap, like it's like a Venn
yeah, it's like
diagram.
umbrellaed.
But by the
Yeah.
time you're finished with that, now you've worked out your like basic muscle groups and you've worked them out to peak, let's say, whatever that means to you. And then let's work on cardio. So you definitely have cardio good to go. And then let's say you work on calisthenics. Maybe like you feel really confident with calisthenics. Where do you go from there? Anywhere you
Hmm.
want. The point is that you don't have to like use only one of those things, and then that's it. Because
Right.
we are eternally learning.
Right. I was thinking about, so with the first topic of conversation being like how we interpret and the communication styles in when we're actually doing a reading.
Mm.
Have you ever come across a spirit that doesn't speak the same language as you when they were living?
Oh
And
yeah.
how did you find that?
I didn't, but I can't imagine that it has never happened before.
Okay. I had
I
a client in Vietnam
okay.
and I do not speak Vietnamese at all.
Yeah.
And we had to use Google Translator between me and the client, but then her spirit of her grandfather, who I don't know this person, they contacted me. And I was like, I don't know what you're saying. But then part of me was like, I'm just going to translate what they said. And it was them asking for a reading. I went, okay. And I was like, I don't know how to talk to you. And we ended up conversing, got on a Zoom, and then, but it didn't stop the information from still being valid and coming across because I was able to articulate like when he served in the war, what he looked like, how old he was at that time, how many kids there were, how he looks after and like over her son, his grandson, like a whole bunch of information. I'm getting chills right now talking about it. And
It's so
um it
nice.
was interesting
Because
to
think
see
about
that
it,
there
like
was
what do
like no
people
barriers.
and like what do people want to get from any reading? They want to hear, "Hey, this is for real.
They want that
This
validation.
is proof that it's for real. Like the, so this is for real. I love you and
Yeah.
I'm okay."
Yes.
Those are the things that people need to know. Are you okay with that? Yes, of course. Remember that time that this happened? I didn't like that. Yeah, that sucked. But we're
It's
okay. Of course we're okay. So this like notion that, like when you break it down to it, like that's so human of us. Like I love us little humans.
I also had a reading with a client who became a return client and she ended up bringing her daughter, but she had a rocky relationship with her father who had passed, who she was wanting to finally get like, do you see now that you're dead and what you did to me type of
Yeah.
vibe.
Yeah.
And she was really like hard set and pressed. And like while he still had reservations, even in his spirit after about how we went about things, he still stood by like the principle. And I had to deliver that. And that's not something you want to hear as a family member and a daughter, that he still believed in doing those things, because of it got her out of like a family generational by making her like not want to be like them and him, that she was able to
Oh,
change the trajectory of like her and
of
forward.
course. Yeah.
And I had to, in the moment, be able to transfer that information that's come to me in images, by the way,
Yeah.
because at that point, it was heavily
Well, it's really
clairvoyant.
like, yeah.
I was pregnant with my twins at both times reading her, freshly pregnant and like almost to my third trimester pregnant.
Jesus.
And talking to her and then talking to her daughter about it and like we got along great. I was like, this is what I'm feeling, this is what's happening, this is how it's coming across. And basically she was like holding my hand. She was like, I don't mean this to you. You're doing wonderful. Fuck you, dad. I was like, fair enough. Fair enough.
Yep.
And you can absolutely, and like if you don't want to like continue talking about with him, it's just like, no, this is good because I'm finally getting the closure that I
Yeah.
need, even if it's not what I want to hear. I know now that like I did everything in my power as like this person in this situation, even with him dead
Yeah.
and contacting him through the dead. Like, and
Yeah.
crows are literally cawing right now out my window.
Well, yeah,
So,
because like it kind of went full circle at that point. Like
hmm,
the whole reason for like she needed to like leave this dynamic, and is wanting closure on why she needed to leave that dynamic, and it there's not going to be any way that makes sense
right?
except for the one that she can basically choose.
Yeah,
So at that point, she's able to choose like to completely wash your hands of this whole situation. Fuck you, I did what I could. I'm not gonna like dwell on this. Good for her. That's
love.
the goal. Like
Yes.
that's absolutely the point. And like that's very, I don't know if you would call it like what's the word? When you like reverse psychology, I guess,
Eh,
in a way, but who cares? Like if it works, it works.
I, it was just really interesting because in that breath of time, because I find when I'm sitting with my client, people are expecting the polished version, edited down to fit into the TV show mediums. Now, with services and like online
With
ratings
big
like
hair. Yeah.
this, people get into a rhythm and can get polished that way. Absolutely. I can think of like a handful off the top of my head right now of tarot readers, mediums, channels that have worked and refined their craft to be able to do that. But for someone like me that is on again, off again on media, but still very imbued in my spirit connections in my day to day, for me to re-get in, it's like getting back to riding a bike again after putting
Yeah.
it away for a while. Like, think of it
Yeah,
like,
you have to like refocus, and not just
yes,
refocus the awake parts of your mind, but you're refocusing the asleep parts of your mind too. Like the
yes,
dormant parts that you're really not using because you are being forced to use the other parts of your brain because of babies and
right?
life and kids and all of this
And the
stuff,
bandwidth.
dinner.
Sometimes you just don't have the stones. And knowing when to like not enter a reading is equally as important as like setting up the container space, setting up the expectations of like, this is how I read, this is what how I'm going to start. If there at any point you want to stop or whatever, like I have a whole like little thing at the beginning of like, hi, nice to meet you. Along the way, you can stop me if it becomes suddenly uncomfortable. You need to
The
leave.
spiel, yeah.
Completely, yeah, my whole thing. I give the whole disclosure, and everybody's like, yeah, for it. And like sometimes I get the skeptics where like they don't want to be seen, and then at the end they're like
Yeah, sure.
conversating with me or like whatever. So going back to like the whole communication thing, and having somebody that in the living doesn't speak English because I'm English
Oh,
speaking, and then having that grandfather energy come through. Afterwards, disconnecting with her, I ended up having a dream of that grandfather coming, and I could understand him.
yeah,
He
that
was
checks.
speaking, and it was like I could hear the words leaving his mouth being in Vietnamese, but then by the time they got like close enough, it like turned and switched over to English,
Oh,
which
oh my
was
gosh, I
so
can
cool.
totally imagine that.
And then I ended up messaging her the next day and I was like, "Hi, I'm so sorry to do this to you again, but and I don't usually get these types of things after, but I found it really interesting our type of reading because we don't speak the same language. But this is what my dream last night was and this is what he had to say." And it was a very specific memory for her of
Mm-hmm.
his childhood growing up growing rice.
Mm-hmm.
It was
Yeah.
crazy what ended up happening. So, and she was like, that's what I was like wanting to know what his childhood was like.
It's
11:11. It's 10:11 for me.
11. Oh, damn it. Of
I
course.
know.
Of course.
So,
That's so cool. I
yeah,
just watched a
so
video recently about like someone kind of the language was important. So instead of like channeling a concept or like some kind of audio that wasn't necessarily a different language, but like maybe not what they're used to, he actually parroted, I think I can't remember what language, like Portuguese. And he's like, I'm sorry, I don't know any Portuguese. Do you speak the language? And she's like, yes. And my mother speaks the language. And he said, but you do, but you also speak English. Can you translate this? And he spoke in Portuguese. I don't think it was actually Portuguese, but I'm saying it.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
He spoke in Portuguese, even though he didn't know the language, while she recalled like she translated it and was like, that makes sense, like, yes, validated it and translated. That was crazy. So it was less him channeling and more him hearing and parroting. And that goes back to when we were talking about clairaudience. Like, I don't have jack for clairaudience. I cannot, like, I never hear anything. I get like, it sounds like a memory, like when you think or you recall a time where someone said something, so it's kind of like in your mind's eye but in your mind's ear, I don't know. And so I'm hearing somebody like as if it were in a memory. I'm not actually hearing them with my ear, right? So if I do hear anything like that, it's like in the middle of the night, which is great. Or but it's not like, it's never during a session. So the fact that he could hear that in some way, even if it was very clearly in his like head,
Mhm.
but it wasn't, I don't know, however he heard it, he was able to like parrot it. And I just think that that's so remarkable, like that's so cool. I would never be able to do that. um but I also do something that he would never be able to do. And I think that that's just like how it's kind of come to the point where like we're doing that school, we're learning all of these different ways to communicate, and then we're finding what measure of each of those elements works best for us in our unique situation, and then
Mhm.
building on that.
I agree. Um, I was gonna say when you're getting into like the zone, what's kind of like your way of going about it? Just like when you're getting ready to open up the space
I should
to like
probably
what's your
verbalize this.
like how what's your process? If you want to share, you don't have to. I just thought it'd be
No, I'm
interesting
totally
because we
fine.
might
Yeah,
have similarities and then there might be
I'm
differences
sure.
also. And
So
it's just highlighting different ways of doing it.
yeah. So you know how you can stand here and without really knowing what you're doing energetically, say, if there are any spirits in this room that aren't supposed to be here or that are not here for my greater good, get the fuck out.
Right.
That's enough. You don't have to like put a lot of oomph behind it because your intentions are enough. Your intentions have been verbalized, right? Now it's going to be different if you're just doing all of this in your head and you're like kind of going through a little bit of a ritual or like a candle lighting or a smudging. It's going to be, these are all different methods that work for each individual, and it would depend on their, I don't know, like how they view the, how they, it's varied. it's so confusing because like if you believe with your whole self that saying that will work, then it will because you're backing it with the fullest extent of your belief system and your energy and your intentions, and all of that is going to this understanding of how things work.
So
And
you're
if you're
setting the intention to invite them forward.
exactly.
Okay. So that's how
So
you start?
when I right, so setting the intention to invite forward, and I do that by lighting a candle and basically saying it. But I know that there are other people's there are other people who have experiences that are like, and I kind of open myself up to, or I imagine that there's a thread going from my brain to wherever it needs to go. Sometimes it's a place, sometimes it's a person. Whenever you're kind of like getting yourself ready and opening yourself up like that, that opening or thread or lighting a candle is kind of going to be different for each person because of how they conceptualize it, which is most of how I interpret
Right.
stuff is
So
by
like
like
what is your
conceptualizing it.
way? What is your way? Because
I
that's why
can
I'm
use my bowl.
asking. So that you can leave, you don't.
Okay,
So,
okay. My way actually is understanding all of these different ways and knowing that I'm not doing it wrong.
okay.
Because
So
if I
just
already
like
know,
if there's one day, like does it change day by day? Like if you do a
yeah, oh
reading
yeah.
yesterday and then it goes into a different day, is it different for you?
So
Depending on what your bandwidth is, because I'm like that too. When you're talking about like the containers and having a sacred space or imaginative place in your mind to
or like a
go,
circle, yeah.
or like some people think of like the forest, or some people like get more conceptual and like detailed with it and make a whole office situation
Yeah.
with a visualization so that they have somewhere to
I've
like
been to
ground
Paige's
in.
office. It's crazy.
Oh, I know. And
Isn't that
and
weird?
that's a totally different
She's got
situation.
file cabinets. I love
Yes,
it
she
so
does, and
much.
it's highlighted and coordinated and like anyway.
It's the most amazing thing in the world. Meanwhile, I have the place and I also understand the physicality of like lighting the candle and speaking it into existence. And I also understand that one can do this by themselves, just like in a little
Yep,
sphere of their brain. But
yep.
by checking all of these boxes for myself, I've now made it impossible for it not to go right.
Perfect. So no matter what you need on that day, you've got it, babe. You've got your tools in your
Or I'll do all of
toolbox.
them. It's a kind of OCD approach, honestly.
I used to be really habitual about it, where even if I was coming on to do readings for a collective and doing a reel or a post, I would light a candle. But now I'm so in tune with my guides, and we have such an interworking bond and connection that there's no, it's not that an offering wouldn't be required or accepted. It's more they're in agreement with where my will and choice is going,
Yeah.
that they're coming and answering and helping me facilitate if I'm using cards, or they'll help me download whatever the message or whatever I feel nudged to
Okay, this
speak
is like a
about.
perfect segue. I love this so much because I do that too until I've decided to enact some kind of change. And whenever I've decided to like change in some way, I will revert back to placing the offering because that's like my intentionality, right? Coming through. This is my this is this is my intention. This is what I'm doing, and it's different. So I'm coming back and starting from the bottom, and it's kind of like how you see people work tarot moments, right? You're rebuilding your foundation. So every time I go back to square one, every time I'm like, okay, let's start from scratch because this is crazy, and I don't think that that's for me. So
The imposter syndrome can be loud sometimes. It can
oh
be
my gosh,
because
so loud.
we are so aware that being too self-aware of all the stuff and things happening, you kind of like the lines can get blurred if you're not able to like put it down sometimes. And that's
Yeah.
why taking breaks is sometimes really necessary, not only for like the mental load and the emotional load, because we're feeling not only the client but our own emotions, and then also whatever spiritual events happened to that person in their
Yeah.
life, their death sometimes. Like there's a lot that
Or
is
any reactions then
moving through us.
that you've like trained in your body, like, yeah, like you're saying, moving through you, like you train yourself to like understand that yes is kind of like a tingling on the crown, or like whatever you decide to do. So if you're in the midst of like some deep channeled something something something, and your head starts tingling, it kind of makes you stop and go, okay, wait a minute. I mean, I thought I was in flow. I thought we were communicating and everything was great, but suddenly you're saying like, "Whoa, this is the truth." Like that's great.
So
But
I call those like truth chills. I actually do. Like
oh,
when
okay.
when my crown and I feel this part of my head get highlighted and like tingly, not this
Yeah.
part, but just this part.
Yeah.
I
Like a
know that I
halo.
am in my sovereignty and I am talking from a place of knowing and delivering it through a place of agency and experience and like my own intellectual gatherings. When I feel like a pinprick and tingling on the very top of my head, I know I am getting an intuitive through line. When I feel like my throat is closing up, I know that they either asphyxiated, had, or hanging from the chandelier. Like there's different feelings. Sometimes I get physical feelings like heart palpitations if they had cardiac arrest, things like that. Um
Yeah.
I'll have numbness in my feet and legs if they
Well,
had poor
the only way that you're
circulation.
gonna, yeah, the only way that you're gonna be able to like discover these things is by doing it. Like you can't, like you could sit there and like tell you, like you could study, like anytime that this happens, it's gonna be a clue for you that this has happened. Your body is gonna react in a way, and you have to clock it.
Hmm.
So that's so cool that you like know.
Well, I
Because I
didn't
feel
just
like
like
I
come
definitely
to
do.
knowing that, oh, this crowning feeling is my sovereignty and speaking from a place of like known truths. That's something I've had to build within my like mediums toolbox, like keyword
Okay.
search.
That's
I've
fair.
had
Yeah.
to ask for that sign repeatedly when I am in flow of, is it this? And then I look and wait for it. And I stay like kind of in a subconscious alertness where I'm worked to understand like, okay, this feeling I assign to being when I am right, when the message is coming through, boom, boom, boom. And I'll get chills throughout my body. And depending on where chills hit in my body, too, I'll know that it's like a masculine energy that's bringing through that message, or a feminine energy coming through that message. So, this is my right side, this is my left side.
Mm.
Also, like clairvoyantly, I'll see things that they use through like my catalog of pictures of things I've seen through my life. Same thing with like things I've overheard, music,
Yep.
XYZ.
I call
And
it
that's
a
how I'm able to
library.
like build towards like the context of what the message is. So a lot of the times I'll do like mindless doodling, or a lot of times you guys have seen me on lives before shuffling cards, but I'm just
Yeah.
saying, but I'm not reading the cards. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. It just depends on like where I feel that pull. That is very subtle. A lot of times I find people that ask as a client after the reading is, how are they talking to you like I'm talking to you right now? I say hardly ever. I think I have had like one or two that have been able to string together a sentence, and even dabbling and experimenting with spirit boxes and paranormal investigative tools, I have yet to, in my experience, have enough intelligent word sequence for me to align with what I'm perceiving. And I'll be able to use my spiritual tools like my pendulum, my tarot cards, and some other things that I have that will confirm what my clair abilities are attuning to and seeing and the information I'm getting, and that will be confirmed that way. So that's interesting. But yeah, I've had clients ask, like, how do you hear them? How loud does it get? I'm sure you're always bombarded. Do you ever get afraid of the dark? This type of stuff.
I love that.
And I've always been open. I didn't know other people couldn't perceive and almost be in this imaginary state of like, oh, I see this far away world, but I'm out shopping with my family right now.
Yeah.
I thought everybody was kind of like la di da di da,
I know.
like
And then when
having
you're
this
growing
like
up,
playing
you're told as
story. And
kids.
well, it's not just when I was a kid. Like when I was shopping with my
No, I'm
aunts
sorry. I
all the way
mean,
until
like
a
as a
teenager.
kid, as a kid, we are all like we're all told like that that's just your imagination playing games with you, like,
But the
and to
imagination
stop
and get into the
should.
creativity flow is
Mm-hmm.
the easiest way I find to be able to tap into a childlike mind
Mm-hmm.
to be receptive and open. Because when you believe pigs can fly, you're going to be more able to perceive messages because there's going to be less emotional block. There's
Mm-hmm.
going to be a less expectation of like what should or shouldn't happen. And that can really slow down a reading too when you get in your own way of like how it's supposed to go.
Yeah,
So, like,
I like how
reading
you put
for
that.
yourself can be the hardest thing you do as a medium, I find, because you have to take the bias out.
Yeah.
And that's why it's a really great idea to have like a community of people like you, me, our other friends that we've had, and like other people we've met along the way, where it's like you find these other like minded people that you vibe with, that you've learned and built like a communication with, that you're able to be like, could you draw some cards and just let me know without giving
Yeah.
them any context clues and seeing if what you're getting and reading for yourself and what they pick up on, if there's anything that can mesh together there
Yeah.
and if it makes sense. Because sometimes you can be in the weeds, dude.
I
But
love
yeah,
this. Yeah. I'm like,
after a
yeah.
reading, yeah,
Yeah.
after a reading, it's like I find I get this high and wave of excitedness and a completeness and almost like I feel a lot of the time because of the way that I open up. So going back to like how we get ready and like get in the zone.
Yeah.
So I sometimes need to use a visual representation in my mind. Sometimes I need to put that away and just light a candle, which I always light a candle for their guides and for their spirits to use as an energy source to be able to ground in and around me, because it's an energy source. And I don't want them drawing off me as much as I'm already opening to them, because I find I dip down and almost go into like if I'm not grounded enough beforehand, if I haven't nourished myself and my body enough before a reading, I can really dip down into like an almost hungover state, which
Oh.
brings me to a memory actually. I was working a crystal show and I was working the front doors. I wasn't working as a medium because I was trying to suss out if I wanted to be a vendor, be a person with a table there.
Yep.
And I'm so glad I did not sign up because I worked the door basically. Everyone and their freaking mother and their grandfather and their uncle and their dead best friend met me at that door. A lot of them didn't want to go to where their living people were choosing out of the vendors available and nagging at me for 8 hours to read their people. And Chris picked me up and I said, take me to bed. And I was in so much physical and mental pain just from
Oh my gosh.
blocking. It was insane. So that's a
Oh.
side effect.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I can't even tell you how many times I'm like drawing, like in the middle of draw. Like I was just fully awake and I thought to myself, it would be a great idea to do some art for like 2 hours or more because I don't just like scribble and then fall asleep. Like if I decide to do a drawing, like it takes time and then I
Yeah.
usually like go overboard on it. So give or take 15 minutes, right? So like let's just so I'm down for being here drawing for 2 hours, and 20 minutes into this portrait I'm like, meow, like fully out.
Night, night.
And I realize halfway through, because I'm quite literally like messing up. Like I have done I don't know which one it was. I don't know which one it was, but there are, well, why even bring it up then, Kara?
No, talk about it.
But
It's fine.
there are portraits that I have that if you were to like do the video, the like time lapse video, there would be like a really weird area where there are some like random squiggles that kind of like go like this down the page and then is erased, and then I draw a little bit more and then another random squiggle where I'm literally falling asleep as
Oh,
I'm drawing. And
oh, bless.
but I don't realize, like I don't even realize that I'm doing that at first. So your like physical response is your physical response, and mine is like I'm just actually falling asleep. Sometimes that turns into a little bit of a headache, but I don't know. It's never, and there are others where I get like energetically totally charged and I feel like almost buzzed afterward.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what it is. Like I don't know what any of the differences are, or like I don't know. I don't know if it's like a vibrational thing. I genuinely, but
I think it could be that. I think it can also be if the exchange of like if you're opening yourself up and depending on like that way of doing it that day. Let's say you didn't have a candle and you just were using
that's
yourself,
true. Yeah.
they're drawing off of your energy, which can deplete you. And if you're already at like, let's use a percentage of like, if you're already at 50 and it
Yeah.
takes that energy and that amount of your energy to focus and it depletes you down to 20%, and then you're spending time after doing your intuitive drawing for somebody and you still want to finish it so that you can send it to them the next day, let's say, you're depleting yourself to that last like 10%, and that's where your internal battery is like, hey, you're a mom, we're not a spring chicken anymore either, and like
Right.
we're doing all the stuff
We're
and
like
things, and we're up at 3 in the morning.
perimenopause, like
Oh,
almost
that's
40,
not what
and
I
I'm like,
mean. I mean,
no,
we're
but
not
I'm
like
so
kids
for real.
anymore. Oh my god, I just realized what I said. Guys, I love Kara, don't you
It's
dare
so
pick this
good.
apart.
It's so
Oh my
funny.
god. I just realized how bitchy that
I'm
sounded.
very much like, yeah, let's fucking go. You're fucking right. That's so
Anyway,
funny.
but it is a thing that like you got to think not about just like how much energy it takes to do the work, takes to do the drawing, and takes to finish it, but what you did up until that part of the reading in the day. I know some mediums that cannot do anything before but sleep
Oh.
because half of their reading is in their dreams, and they'll wake up, boom, 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 write it down. They'll get into their session with their person and they'll continue to draw information based off of the dream and what they're actively
How
getting
does
when
one
awake.
even schedule that? Like,
They
what
don't
are the
have kids.
logistics there?
They don't have kids.
Oh,
Yeah, that
oh.
makes a difference. We each have 5 million children.
Yeah. And
But
dogs.
and like the emotional high and
Yeah,
um
it's a roller
dopamine hit
coaster.
that can happen after when you feel like you've done a good job, when you feel like you and your client were really vibing in the moment and you get to have a really good rapport with them and it's just like a really great like work day, but it's a
Yeah.
session that fills our cup because we're not doing this for this.
Oh my
We're
God,
not doing
no.
it for the money. We're doing it because we want to uplift, connect, and like broaden the horizons and like help people understand that you can do this too. Because there was at one point I would have called myself a farce. I would have called myself a fucking you know
Yeah,
it.
it's weird.
And like the imposter syndrome that attaches with that and the shadow work and the parts of yourself where like what you once understood it now gets replaced because
Yes.
there's just too much evidence that stacks up to prove that like you can,
Yep.
because you're curious about it and you try it, and if you have the right people and you set up the right like disclosures that like, hey, I'm just developing, if you're interested in a reading and you want to, like, let's try, like those types of groups and support systems and places exist for a reason so that people have an entry point. It's
Yeah.
not like it was 30, 40, 50 years ago where you had to know through word of mouth
Yeah,
who the
communication
village
and
healer
community.
was, or yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And now like art has always been healing. Art has been a self-expression. It's healing and therapeutic for the person performing the art. It's healing for somebody viewing the art, whether it's through dance, music, fine art, throwing paint at a wall is really cathartic.
Yeah.
Slamming
I
some
like the paint
clay.
that's like they put it in a bucket and it has like holes drilled in the bottom of the
Oh
bucket.
yeah, and then
It
the
looks
big
so
canvas,
cool. Yeah,
isn't it? I thought those are so
it's
cool.
so dumb, but it's so cool.
I know. And the way that they like sling it through and like it's
Yeah.
hanging on a chain. Yeah, I've seen that.
And like
So,
it's one of those things that I know that there are so many like fine art like aficionados or artists themselves who like turn their nose up at various different kinds of art, but specifically the kind that doesn't really take skill to create. So you would think because it looks like it's like easy, you know? And then I
mhm.
always like to think about the people who have trained to do things and that's how they have skill. Like even though the things that we're doing might look easy doesn't mean that they are. And
Or that
I
they've
just
always been
love,
easy. Sometimes it looks easy now because you didn't see the work in the dark to get there. You know what I
yeah.
mean? I was going to say that from my observation and watching not only you do drawings for myself and our friends, but then also for your clients and being a part of your lives, because sometimes we team up and do collaborative where you'll do an intuitive drawing while I'm actively reading for the
Yep.
person that they want brought through. And just watching your process and how you get quiet within yourself, which if you know Kara, she is very all over the place. She has gone with the wind. And I say this, wow, hello, light. What's happening?
The whole building flickered. Like you
Oh,
could hear it.
all right.
That was cool. Well, to be fair, we did have the power go out. What? Yeah, was that yesterday? Like
I don't know.
recently for like 2 hours or so, and then it
Oh,
hopped back
damn.
on. Yeah,
But
I thought today
just
was
watching you
Friday.
get into like
And
the
today's
zone.
Friday.
Like, I don't know what your actual process is, and it sounds like it changes each time you do it, but like when you lit your candle and you're out on the porch at your old place, or like when you've
So
explained your
okay,
process, it's almost like you're narrating to yourself, but internally, are you having a conversation? Are you hearing things
so
at all? Or is it literally just in your hand and what's coming out?
this is I love the this question and the answer that I have this question because um I do all of them. So every time I realize that something works, Poppy, cool it. Poppy, stop. Leave it.
Just like, it's not okay, mom. Poppy is her dog. Poppy and I hang out.
Poppy, sit. Chill, man.
Come here,
There are
Poppy.
people. We live in an apartment. Chill. Um, oh God. I'm not allowed to tell you this apparently.
So you do all of it.
I added to my list of things to do because in the doing of this list, eventually I forget something because I've hit flow state and it's all accidental.
Interesting. That is so interesting to me. Okay, because
Because I can't
what it
do it
looks
like
like from the
consciously,
outside
but I'm
because you're
completely
still from the outside looking in, being on the receiving end. It's like watching you still narrating your process and you're still talking and it's like you go all over the place in your conversation
Mhm.
or if you're like explaining your process, you wouldn't know if you were getting a secondary conversation, for example, because you're so able to like juggle while
Am
also
I able?
producing high class, like beautiful portraits within like half an hour to 45 minutes to an hour, depending on how detailed the person wants it, how detailed it's coming through. It's
This
like
is
mind
consistent. It's
blowing.
convoluted, but it's consistent.
You are consistent. No, take your
It's
roses.
crazy. It's
um,
crazy. Yeah.
so like does that happen though? That like do you see things and like how an eye shape should be? Do you see like how their nose should be? Or does it only come out in the hand?
No, I see. So, okay. Um, like I'll start with using just kind of like zigzagging and just like letting Poppy, you gotta stop. Stop. You can't be barking in here like this. See what I mean about me just like having a conversation with her and she suddenly listens? Whereas we're over here like saying, no, stop. And she's like, yeah, but fuck you. I turn and like just tell her what's up. Hey, we can't do this. We live in a small apartment. Like, you are too big and too barky. And she's like, fucking quiet now. Don't label me a liar. Okay. Anyway.
Okay, so you do see the shape of a nose or the shape of somebody's face.
Okay, so when you start with like this foundation of splotches or zigzags or lines, so the beginning of it is kind of like the intuitive hand kind of going wherever it wants to go. And then I kind of like switch over to scrying. So now I've got a foundation that I'm starting with. I'm going to start scrying and looking to find things in this mashup of like smushed up lines or circles or dots or however it is that you're drawing.
Mm-hmm.
So you have your foundation, you switch over to scrying, and then you just add where it seems like there needs to be some. So, like, if I see a very, very light silhouette of an eye, I'm like, oh, that looks like an eye. So I'm going to go kind of like color, like we're coloring inside the lines. I'm going to go draw a little bit to darken that area, but as I'm darkening it, I create more lines. I create more little zigzags and crisscrosses. And
Mm-hmm.
so I just kind of like start from a broad and then I like narrow my way to the finer details. And when I'm getting to the finer details and they look familiar, I call it familiar because it's like how I feel. Okay, so you know Uncanny Valley, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, you've explained it to me.
So
It might not be known to others though.
so Uncanny Valley is the ability to recognize when something is not human. And people think that this is a phenomenon that started when there were still like Homo sapien and what is it, Homo erectus living on the planet. So we developed these like neurological phenomenon in order to recognize other Homo
Faces.
sapien. So as we are like evolving, that has kind of like continued into like the notion of automated robots or somebody who looks like a human but isn't, or and then you've got things like skinwalkers and
And even
wearing
as
someone's
like
skin and all these
simple,
other things. I'm sorry.
even as simple as like seeing faces and like tree bark is
Yeah,
a really
pareidolia.
good
Exactly.
one.
So that's the tree bark example. That's pareidolia. That's like recognizing.
Mm.
And then Uncanny Valley is also recognizing, but it's recognizing that it's not human. So
Okay.
pareidolia is like, oh, hey, this looks human. Uncanny Valley is like, oh, wait, that's definitely
That's
not
not
human.
human.
And
Got
then there was a third one that I was just talking about. I forgot what it
you. It's okay.
was. But we use these things like in conjunction with one another to recognize when something looks right or when something doesn't quite look right. So
Mm,
when I am looking at a human face and I'm like, yeah, but this doesn't look human, I'm going to keep working on it and trying to figure out how to make it look human. And my this looks human is for me, this is right because
so,
I'm allowing it more of that humanity look.
right.
So I'm just using these like the feeling of so, and I'm kind of like I'm using the phenomena and I'm using the feeling of the phenomena, so the recognition as kind of like part of my communication. I'm saying like, hey, that feeling is the feeling that I want in order to like get to the better portrait. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So is it like a sentient feeling of like, okay, stop working on this part of the face. Now you need to move over here now? Is it like that?
Um,
And then my second thing
no.
that I was going to ask, what
Oh,
happens when it's not? What if it's a guide? What happens then?
what about a guide?
Because like if it's not a I had to do the puzzle piece. If it's not a god, if it's not an ancestral guide, if it's not a person
Oh yeah.
and you're drawing, how do you use the uncanny
Oh, I use
part
it
of
in the same
you?
way.
Okay.
So because even if it's a guide, I anthropomorphize. So I'm drawing the human aspect of this no matter what. Um
Mm.
because that's how we see things, that's how we communicate. Now, granted, I have been working really hard to like set that bias aside and see if I can create something that is non-human, which would be really
Well,
cool.
well, you have.
But
You've drawn one of my guides. That's a dragon.
but it's that was I feel like it was more conceptual as opposed to like channeling an image. And
Mm.
so like I understood that I needed to draw a dragon, so I was drawing a dragon as opposed to like I like there's an image here and I'm figuring out the darker areas and the lighter areas. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yeah. We will do a Q&A at the end. We're not ignoring you. We're bumping through some topics, and then we'll at the end we'll get back to you. Okay. So I do see your comment. Um, but okay, so that's how it feels to you, and it's an intuitive, and then it becomes scrying, and sometimes you need the candle, sometimes you need a crystal, sometimes like do any of your charms and your wearable altar. Do you ever use that to help get you in the zone?
Not really.
Okay. Do you
I'm
ever
more
call
than
upon your guides? Like, would you ever
oh
call
yes.
upon King Belial to like, hey, help me get with this and
He
understand it?
basically stands behind me every single time I do a drawing. He's
That's so
just
cool.
right behind me. And
Oh,
like it's like a whole and that's its own whole system like this is the thing that I this is how I conceptualize what I do in a way that my human brain will would understand it, right? So I like
right.
imagine myself in on this like in this circular room and it's like there's brick and it's a platform and King Belial's behind me and then like there's a hallway and then down the hall Lucifer's over there and he is like in front of a switchboard and it's the like old timey switchboard where you're like
You have to
connecting
plug in the
to new
wires.
things. And so whenever this is this like fun silly like way that I understand what's going on, but
It's
it's
not silly
also
because it's the way that you're grounding in the information for the way that the
exactly.
information moves through you and the way that makes sense using your spirit vocabulary that you've built over time with your peeps,
But I
aka
don't
guides.
always so I don't always like imagine myself in that place doing that thing with these people and or I don't visualize that all the time, but I understand that that's happening in some space. I I don't know.
We're not meant to
So
have all the answers. We're only human.
exact. And see, that's kind of how I felt, like kind of gathering up all of these different ways and techniques and reasons that this makes sense because of like cave drawings and like the most insane jumping through hoops answer that I could give you, I probably have because I jumped through those hoops already. Like
Well, and
that's how
that's
I got
part
here.
of like the research and discernment and
Hmm.
understanding how our brains are quantifying energy and like how that all happens. Which I we have a mutual friend page that is way better at articulating that. I understand it and interpret for myself, but then to relay that to other people and it makes sense, I don't feel comfortable or like I am reliable enough as a resource. So that can be a topic for another day, but then talking about more of like the primal instincts and like what you've learned about our evolution from being hunter gatherers and like just needing to survive to then being where we are now with technology and communication and the style of ways that we're able to live now,
Yeah,
and that
well,
we're still using technologies our older evolutions used all the time, but now it's more in a fun way. you know,
right.
more in a interconnection type of way instead of
And it's
outward.
also like through evolution and through time, like over time, like especially human history, we have evolved, of course, to have a lot of the commodities that we have today, a lot of the things, energy and yada yada yada, a roof over our heads, a safe place, so that we can now think about these other things. But we have, instead of any of that, filled it with as many things as actually humanly
Really
possible.
possible.
And just,
We went too
so
far
let's
in the paint,
fuck the
guys.
void. We need to fill this void with as many thoughts.
As
and
possible. Isn't
and
it interesting though that we're still only using a certain percentage of our brain's capacity, even
yeah,
at this day and age? Like, there's just so much more to unlocking. And, like, that's where those types of pieces of information, where people are like, well, how do you know you're receiving the information and you're not in psychosis or you're not schizophrenic and having like mental personality disorders and things like this? Is because after I'm done doing a reading, I don't retain the information. It's not mine. It doesn't stay with me. It's not
yeah,
my memories. I'm
yeah.
able to,
That's a good way to
like,
put
a
it.
memory of me going to school and hanging out with my friends, recall. I have memory recall, but I don't
Hmm.
remember, like, if I, like, for an example, before you came onto the live tonight, I had people coming into the live and I was like, this is what I'm getting ready for. This is what's happening. I'm a medium and I'm more of a like traditional style. Whereas my friend is an intuitive artist and she's able to like draw portraits of your loved ones. So if you ever had to move or your stuff got damaged, you were in a fire and you had to get out and leave your pictures behind, she would be able to give you back grandma's picture
Yeah,
because she could draw her. Not like you could hire her as an artist if you just wanted a portrait. But if you wanted to invoke and hire her for her intuitive drawings, where you just give her a name or you just say draw grandma,
who does
she
that?
can do
That's
it.
so crazy.
It is so
Me.
crazy in the best way with, but like, and like this is the other thing too, and like a continuation of like talking about continue to be open minded and expanding. Like we can be actively practicing and still second guess ourselves and like
Oh my god.
talk down about like our abilities
Yeah,
because that's the human part of us blown away by what happens. Like sometimes in my
yeah.
readings, something will happen. Like earlier, I was talking with another chick that I could tell she had been having migraines. And I was like, have you been having migraines? And she's like, yeah. I was like, you need to get acupuncture. Has anybody told you to get acupuncture for? And she's like, yeah. I was like, okay, well, there you go. but I wasn't even like working. I just knew. And I was like, you can't make this shit up. Like, you just
No,
can't. Because she's
I feel like
never
she's pretty
DM'd
smart.
me. We're not close like that. Like, I know
Yeah.
her through the lives,
Oh my
but it's
gosh,
not.
did I tell you the drawing that I did night before last? I made the joke that like I said, "Hey, this person seems like kind of a diva," like in a glamorous kind of way because of the
Okay.
way her eyes and the her she was clearly there was makeup, like her cheekbone was like cut, and I was like, ooh, dang. And I don't know why her face shape would make any fucking difference as to whether or not she was glamorous or a diva, but I'm like, hey girl. And I'm like, so I'm drawing this, and like my reaction to this very benign, like disembodied face
Didn't
is
come to
like,
life yet.
oh, I bet you have a beauty mark. Do you have a beauty mark somewhere? And then I looked, literally looked for a beauty mark and saw one, saw that there was this one dark area. And I was like, oh my gosh, look at that. There's a fucking beauty mark.
That's
Okay, I'm
so
going to add
cool.
this because that's so cute. She had a beauty mark in the exact same spot. So I don't even, so I was speechless. I was just like, what? That's incredibly specific. Okay, and it was the same direction, and the lighting was the same as the picture on her altar currently, because she's been wanting to connect with her grandma, I think her grandmother, more, I don't know, closely, whatever.
Right.
So,
Feeling
like,
closer to your family, yeah.
what?
Oh, I love that.
That
I
was so
remember coming
specific.
into one of your lives more recently, and you were working on a nose, and you knew that this part of the nose like went in, and
Yep,
it was straight and more narrow than what you had on the page. Because I wonder, like if you think of a camera lens, and if you focus on this part of the face, how maybe if you're zoomed in too much, it would look too big. So
yeah.
when I'm using my sight, sometimes I have to take several steps back for the whole picture to seem proportionate.
Yep.
Does that ever happen to you where, like,
Oh,
oh, one eye is way too big and then the other one isn't making sense because of this and that? Because
so
it's almost like the spirit's like this instead of like, hi, draw me from
so
here
funny.
up. Do
I
you know?
literally have drawings of like just like
I love it.
because okay, so what'll happen is I'll start like broad, right? I'll start with like the full page, and then if I
Hmm.
see something, it's usually two dark spaces for eyes, a nose, and a mouth, because no matter what I'm doing, I'm channeling an anthropomorphized version of an energy. Maybe it's a human energy, maybe it's a tree energy, I don't know, maybe it's a goddess or a demon or your grandmother, like who cares? I'm channeling that energy with a human face. So I know that I'm looking for two eyes and a nose and a mouth. So usually that means dark, dark, dark. It's this classic triangle, usually the thing that you see using pareidolia and finding random human faces in places. So this is kind of what I mean by like redundancies, and like this thing also works with this thing, and this method also like clicks in nicely with this method, and this also helps with my understanding of the universe via like astrophysics, and like it
I
just
love
keeps
it.
going.
It
And
does. It's like a snowball.
yeah, it's so cool. um but when so, okay, so anyway, I start large, and I kind of like look for two eyes usually, and then once I kind of clock into that, I kind of just start to darken those areas. Now sometimes one of those areas I'll be like, oh, I see everything right now, like I see the line right there, and that looks like it's because you're also kind of squinting and you're also looking from afar, you're doing the like classic things that artists do when they want to like gauge perspective in an area and like see the whole,
Mm.
or squint their eyes to like make things fuzzy. I also take the contrast down so that my eyes are fighting to see this thing. I want it to look messy because pareidolia is going to find a human face, even if you're not, even if you can't see. Like, you're more likely to see something when you're not wearing your glasses if you're nearsighted. You know what I mean? Like, you're more
Mm,
likely to see a yeti in the snow if you have really horrible vision and your glasses fell on the ground and something large went by. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
your purpose, what I do is I purposefully
make it more difficult.
skew my perception,
Right.
and I basically ask my guides to guide my eyes. Like, I if I skew my perception in this way, can you like point out what could look like an eye so that I
Do
can
you
go with the
ever
wind?
have your guides come into your body and kind of move your eyes for you if you let yourself go
Mm-hmm.
enough? Like, you know,
Almost
when they
always,
tell you
yeah.
to rest your vision and let everything go blurry, and then, okay, so you are letting, so that's like a passive possession. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is though,
Yeah.
because they're maneuvering
Yeah.
and moving your eyes
Yep.
or
That's how
like
I
your
like it.
hand. That's so cool.
Yeah.
I do that, but with the images in my mind. So I'll be like, okay, is this what I'm supposed to be? Like, they'll show me a scene or a scenario. And I'll be like, okay, what part of this do I need to talk about first? And I'll let them in my mind kind of like almost like a cursor with a mouse going like, click that part. And sometimes like my physical
Dang.
eyes
I
like
wish I
go
had a
there.
cursor. I have like a this glows when you touch it.
I love it.
But you have to
Sometimes I
touch
don't.
all of them to fucking figure out which one glows. And
I love that. I
it's
sometimes
so
I don't,
funny.
and sometimes it's just like that clear cognizance and knowing of like
Mm,
that's what you need to highlight first to get the show on the road.
yeah.
Because there's a lot to come through type of thing, and we got to get going on it. Which is interesting. Um,
I literally just heard, there's a lot to come through and we got to get going. And my brain was like, oh, that for whatever reason, that was sharper and that was clearer and that was louder. What are my guides trying to tell me? Like, what do you need to say? What's going on?
oh me?
So now I'm like overthinking.
Oh, this is not a direct attack at Kara for getting her shit
No.
together. All right. I am not actively channeling to my knowledge. Who knows anymore? um, okay, so we've kind of talked about what it's like when we're in the middle of doing the reading. I've highlighted what happens post a reading. For you, you've talked about having the high and having the lows, and also continuing with the drawing because you need to like sometimes I doom scroll on my phone or I'll go eat some like really greasy disgusting food because it's grounding for my body. My body's
Yeah.
craving that salt because I went through such an energy burn. I get really hot when I'm channeling, when I'm in the mode, and like if I'm doing back to back readings, like I have to get up and move my body. I am constantly drinking water and like I'm snacking most of the time, and like as hair comes into my mouth. Um, I find like if wasn't doing that during the reading, if I didn't have snacks available, like I need to go eat right after to bring me more back into my body. Sometimes, even though I send their spirits of family members back with them and where they came from, um, sometimes they kind of like linger on the outskirts of my parameters, if you will. And I can still feel them like checking on my well-being, if that makes sense, where it's like they're slowly withdrawing so that I don't get this like huge snapback. Think about the brain and as like a rubber band, and if you've been going and going and going for so long and covering multiple conversations with multiple people, eventually it might snap. That's what it's like for me if I'm for one person and they have a whole bunch of passed on loved ones. I'm
Okay.
channeling a whole bunch of messages for this one person. And if I'm already at a bandwidth that's already overextended and spent, I find that there's a little bit more care. Now, whether that's coming from my guides and I am still perceiving the residuals of their energy that had come and brushed and was around mine for that long of duration, because that's usually a very long reading, because
Mm-hmm.
there's multiple voices that or feelings and memories coming through. So that snapback and like headache, and it's not really like a headache like what we usually mean it by, but like it's a head tingling, but on the inside of like knowing that they're still there,
Hmm.
but not within my boundaries.
Yeah, that kind of it makes me feel of like swimmy or like
Yeah.
a little bit confused. Like you're holding these extra things that you don't necessarily need
I'm
to.
not confused because I know where it's come from because it's not my own.
Okay, that's fair.
Um, but I'm trying to think back to like when I first started doing that and if I even knew or if I just felt the tiredness because it can be like that tired and drained feeling without feeling the hangover. The hangover additive symptom is usually when it's
Mm.
like too much open, not enough grounded. Um, so we've kind of touched on like that. Do you have anything about before we move on to the next one? What it's like after you've done readings? Is there anything that you can think of, or a funny memory, or something that you feel like is worth sharing when you're done readings that maybe other people would benefit from hearing?
I don't know. Um, I'm sure that there are a ton. I don't know if any of them are relevant to how I do things now. So like because everything has been so like grow, 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 grow. Because I'm trying to discover the thing that works the best, right?
Mm,
But we're always trying to discover the thing that works the best.
that's true.
So you're constantly going to get better and better and better at that thing because you're just accruing more and more knowledge. And so at some point unless you decide to like stop continuing to learn, unless you kind of plateau and you're not actually seeking more knowledge given this thing that you're trying to get better at, I see it less as a level up and more as a gradual climb. Like you're
Mm-hmm.
just adding more and more to your library of knowledge, which is only going to continue building the different ways that you do the things that you know works because of X, Y, Z, and A and B, C, and all of the planets and all of mathematics and the entirety of
The whole
astrophysics.
kit and caboodle.
Like,
The whole kit and caboodle.
which
Oh
of course
my.
is never going to happen.
No.
But
There's
like,
only so much that we can learn. And like that also brings up an important thing that like how much do you as a beginner need to acquire
Poppy,
before getting started? Because I feel like people can get into that like uh, get like the even getting started an initiative to believe in themselves and their practice and what they've learned and obtained to then start doing it for themselves and then others. And when that's like the appropriate time to do that, that would be an interesting topic for another time for sure. But that's interesting about like hearing, yes, we're always continuing to grow and hold an openness, but then at what point do you start becoming the, I guess, not just like mentor or teacher, because not everybody would want to follow into that suit of like being responsible for other people's well-beings and like expansion and growth, but maybe in the way that like it's professional where there's like a polished component with it, because
yeah.
if you're bringing it to the masses or even talking about it, writing about it, drawing about it, making journals or making a tarot deck or even just involving yourself in a community and joining other people's classes, and you're asked to share your experience in that, you're subjected to speaking and having a knowledge about what you just went through. So there comes a point where it's like, you stop always in the pursuit of learning and then adding in doing,
So I think that hilariously,
like the
because this,
practice.
like, I think that it's not necessarily in the pursuit of more knowledge on a single thing. I think that it's driven by the pursuit of making a single thing easier,
Mm.
which is one of the reasons why we fill our brains with ADHD. And the constant like maddening like looking at our screens and like the 24-hour news cycle and beer.
So more isn't always more.
Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting.
Because imagine, like, go back to when you're thinking about your brain and how you're only using 10% of it.
Mm.
I have to wonder if early humanity in Babylonia was also 10%. I have to wonder if we are in an infant state of evolution, like the universe is 14.5 billion years old so far. Our Earth is 4 billion years, 4.5 billion years old, and humanity itself, Homo sapien, is 300,000, more than 300,000
Yeah,
years
something like
old.
that.
And
They found
industrialization it is 200 years old, and the internet is 20 years old.
they must have lived in different tech and civilizations that maybe we haven't even unearthed, maybe, or that
Who?
older civilizations of humans.
No, 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 no. I'm saying that we are a young
In comparison, yes.
in comparison to future like selves, like
Right.
imagining we would continue to evolve and we would continue to expand to the point where we're using 20% of our brains in 100,000 years, or we're use you know what I mean, like I
What
wonder
if
if that's part of evolution in general.
this is such a sidebar part of the conversation, but I was gonna
Hi, my
say
name is Kara.
no, because I'm totally down for this. Because what if older versions of our human makeup and the way that our brains were connecting, what if we were using at one point 100% of our brains, but then as we continue to evolve, we got stupider?
Well, I guess it
All the
would depend
scientists
on
are going to
what.
come at me right now, and I'm just a person. I don't know shit for shit. I talk to dead people, okay?
I so but all I would say, I would just say like what to you is stupider, and I mean that genuinely, I'm not being an asshole,
Oh, no,
like
no.
is higher thinking and being in one, like being one with
It's all
the
subjective.
earth and the planet, like would that
That'd
mean
be
that
subjective.
exactly, would that mean that an animal who's fully living in the moment in every moment of its life, because they don't necessarily have not consciousness, but would you stop? I'm trying to say you're just an animal. But she's
Good.
but I guess that I
It's
mean,
just
like, does
it's
that
just a
mean that
little funny to hee ha ha to me where it's like, yes, if at that point, let's say, because I have no idea. This is me just like throwing spaghetti at the wall right now because we're both on a tangent and this
let's
is
go with
tickling
it?
my ADHD with her ADHD. So I think it's interesting that if at one point, supposedly, if our human predecessors used 100% of their brain But within their hunter gatherer and or older civilizations where it was more with the land than it is with like our civilization of this day, their
Well,
technology may be different, but just as evolved, let's say.
we could measure that though, because there are people on Earth who are still living in the hunter gatherer way in tribes in some areas. Like we could
So
literally compare that. I wonder if they have.
I don't know.
That
I
would be
don't know
fascinating
enough
to
about
ask.
this, but with what you're asking earlier, if it would be stupid, no,
You
I think
also
we would be
told me
stupid
that you said
because we're using technology and replacement of our brains to make it simplified. This
exactly.
is like the day old age question where it's like,
No, but there was
does
recent
technology or shortcuts to improvements replace and help society and people? Like the whole conversation right now, we can bring this
yeah.
to like today with like people talking about AI and how
Yeah.
it's affecting
And
us as
this
like a
is literally the
generation.
first
Kids
generation.
aren't
Yeah,
looking
exactly.
at how to like read a book, know what an encyclopedia is because they had Google and now they
Yep.
had ChatGPT who can
Yeah.
not only like Google, you could research and find things quicker than you could going to the library back before there was the internet. Now they have the internet
Libraries
plus
exist.
an assistant to tell them how to write an essay and better yet, do it for them. So is it actually beneficial? Is the technology actually helping and simplifying but making us super?
Okay,
Like
so what I
if
would
we have
suggest
more kit and like ability and connections within our mind now and like where science has gotten us and evolutionary like advances and we're creating these things for our society but and then making it available to the masses, are we actually bettering our societies compared
so we
to
already
those
see this.
ancients? And
We
that,
already
okay,
see this, right?
go
So like
Kara.
there are a lot
She's like, I got this.
we already see this happening right now. So we see that the younger generation is not meeting any of the same goals that the generations before
In
has.
school, you mean?
And it's the first time in history, in recorded history, that the next generation isn't smarter because millennials are peak. And so
Sorry, as a millennial, that's hilarious. That was her sarcasm. Nobody come for Kara.
you can come for me all you want. Like so so like every generation is smarter than the last because of the continued like pursuit of knowledge in general
Mm,
until now. So far as we can tell, the next generation has not surpassed the previous generation at every turn. And
mm,
that's already a red flag, right? So, as humans, we are looking at these things and learning these things. And look at cigarettes. Like, people realize that cigarettes give you cancer. And now sometimes people like smoke cigarettes and the vast majority of the population doesn't because we know and we're learning and we're moving on, right?
mm-hmm,
So, what I'm assuming is going to happen is humanity will realize that having AI in classrooms is not the way to go. We know because look at all of the data. Now, obviously, there are like so many politics that are like, hey, that doesn't actually happen. We can look at all of this data and people could derive two different things from it. Totally. But I'm kind of talking on a grand scale, like on a
global.
global, once every like 50 to 100 to 200 years. Uh, So I don't know what's going to happen in another 3 generations,
Right.
but I have to believe that humanity will say, "Oh, you know what? They used to do things back in the early 2000s and everyone just got fucking stupid. So guess what we did? We implemented all these things
It's interesting
made
because
it
at one
because we
point,
know what's better
knowledge,
because oh, okay.
I was going to say, because this is interesting that like you're talking about having the ability and the connections and like at first the internet and the way that it was like unrolled was that it's untapped resource and instant knowledge to help better the society, but it ended up hindering it because people began to get like addicted to it and get into like bad deals with it, like black market, hacking, all these types of things, fraud,
Yeah.
those types of things that they couldn't perceive. So that's interesting.
It's kind
I
of like the multiverse theory and how like there is truth to every literal thing out there that you anybody has ever thought of. There's truth to it in some way if you look at it through this lens, through like with all these other things that could have happened. Like, have you ever seen everywhere all at once? Like the if you consider that, then yeah, that makes sense. Like, of course.
where I was going with the whole knowledge used to be. So if we think about like when books were first made and like who they were for and who could afford them, knowledge was for those who could afford it, who had the means to understand it and were taught it, but majority of people didn't. Now, in comparison, everybody has the capability to learn. Libraries are free, books are free through that. We have subscriptions, we have internet, we have the encyclopedias online, and now we have whether you are for it or not because it's AI. I can see how it can be helpful, but also I don't like that
I
it's
think that it's an
dwindling
inevitability.
resources.
Yeah. I think it's just an inevitability that we will eventually figure out more about. Like,
Like, could we put it in space as a satellite? Anyway, that's another conversation. But what I'm trying to say is that the knowledge of information has always kind of been like this gatekeeping sequence of like who gets to have it and how long do you get to have it and
yeah.
what barriers beyond it. Because whether or not, like, I haven't actually looked into this, but the governments move in mysterious ways, as we've seen through history. That's just one of those types of like nuance and facts that like they've hidden documents and sightings and information from people that decades later they reveal. So who knows what's going to come from the AI stuff? Who knows what's going to come from them, the book bans happening in schools these days on literature that we grew up reading that
Yeah.
was we had to do book essays on but now are condemned because of what they're teaching, but then and the media and like grooming children and certain cultural beliefs and religious beliefs in comparison could just be as poisonous.
Oh yeah.
So it's like the juxtaposition of it all is really interesting to me. And we completely got off topics. I'm
And
going
it's the
to
extinction
bring it
event.
back.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
That's okay. No, if you want to add your last tidbit, I think then we should end our conversation because we're getting to be over an hour and a half now. And I'm just thinking that we have a lot, we always have lots of ideas, you and me. We
Yeah.
have plenty to talk about. And I just think um, we can hit the home run with maybe talking about like how we've overheard spirit conversations when we're not actively actually like doing mediumship, but we overhear
I
slight
don't
of
think that I
words.
I don't
Oh,
think
you,
that I have. Well,
oh,
sometimes, but it's always me like actively meditation, like in
okay.
meditation. So, like, yeah, because I don't really like hear audibly. Like the clairaudience is just kind of like probably not. Um, so I have to be like very concentrated in order to get clairaudience. And if I'm not, and if I'm not like concentrating on anything, it's just kind of like very vague. So if anyway, my point is like if I'm overhearing something, it's because I'm already meditating, which means I'm already in that headspace and I'm already like in this like
connection.
intention driven like journey, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
What
I have
is there
definitely.
anything like funny that's popped up that you have a memory of that you're always like that was freaking funny? Because that's where I thought would be a nice place to end off because I'll share mine while you think because I've got mine ready. I was just hanging out. I had the spirit box going, and like I've mentioned in other conversations and in this podcast segment, I've mentioned that sometimes there's not enough intelligence that comes across in the spirit box that co-aligns with what I'm interpreting through my abilities. So I was just hanging out. I wasn't working. I had the spirit box going. My husband was in bed with me. We had a TV show going on, and then an advertisement came on and like the commercials and stuff. And the TV show was taking place in Texas. And I heard in my being, like in my body and like feeling, holy fucking shit balls, that's hot. And then on the spirit box, it said Texas. And I died laughing, and my husband goes, Texas. And I was laughing on the inside that I didn't hear the spirit box. So I'm looking at my husband, and I was like, what did it say? And he's like, it said Texas. And then he started speaking to the room, being like, yes, they're in Texas. And like he started explaining the TV show to the spirits around. And then I could hear like the scuffling, like laughing because they were laughing at each other over hearing
Yeah.
him explain to them what they were already watching with us.
Oh my god, that's so funny.
That was like one of the most recent ones. I also went on a paranormal hunt with one of my friends that was a client turned friend turned um, friend that we do this type of stuff with now. And I was out at McDonald's and she was visiting people in her like sister's neck of the woods, which is hours away, but still within the same province. And she was like, hey, are you picking up on anything right now? Now, McDonald's with a play place on like a Saturday afternoon, that thing is bumping. That thing is busy. And I was
Mm-hmm.
getting my Frosty or whatever they're called, the ice cream, McFlurry.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Anyway, so I was enjoying it. And I was busy with my own kids and making sure everything was okay. And then she's like, are you picking up on anything? And I was like, yeah, hold on. I feel like a lightheadedness in my head. I'm not really feeling like my head's a part of my body. And she's like, yeah, that checks. And the whole guy was like, was headless.
Oh,
Then talking with her later, and we're on a hunt. This was a family member of hers.
yeah.
We're out on a hunt, and I literally get the memory of this guy, but he had a sense of humor that the headless horseman.
Yep.
He dressed up in my mind as the headless horseman, galloping
Of
as
course.
like a Halloween costume. And I mentioned that, and she said she had literally just been watching that the other night.
That's awesome.
I'm dead. So it's like, well, your brother was hanging out with you, and he has a weird sense of humor where it's like dark humor, and he like dressed himself up as that, and she was killing herself laughing.
That's hilarious.
And then, so do you have anything like that?
um Not really on the like spirit communication front. Definitely with my guides because
Okay,
like
well, that's still
everything
spirit.
is one of my favorite things that I like to share is when I feel like I created a little like um I don't know, written thing for myself with King Belial. And it was just basically like, I'm promising, but like, he was very adamant, like, listen, we need to write this down because there's like ritual in that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm writing down the things that I'm promising to do for myself and to do for King Belial. And they're things like trust myself, or at least do my best to trust myself,
Hmm.
um, etc. Um, and I was like, okay, so now what do I do with it? And in my head, I hear, well, give it to me. And I was like, okay. So I like fold it in half and I put my hand on it, like on my desk, right? And I close my eyes and I imagine myself opening doors into something. And the something was an office, and King Belial was like in this, like seated at this like huge, like mahogany desk, you know, those gigantic
Yeah.
ones that are like so
A
chunky.
man's desk. Yeah.
So and you know, like he's got the like wheelie chair right behind it, and there's like he's backed up to windows, and the windows are like the, a skyline, right? Very New York, right? Very like, I don't know,
Hmm.
80s, 90s. And I'm walking in like looking like a secretary, right? And I'm just like, okie dokie. What are we doing? Is this like a role play situation?
Naughty, naughty.
So I'm taking this piece of paper and I'm like walking over to him and I hand it to him. There you go. And he picks it up and he opens it and he looks at me like eye roll style, like, and says, you spelled this wrong, and hands it back to me. So I argued and I was like, I fucking did not, okay? I'm dyslexic. I'm shit with spelling. I double, triple check everything, especially right now. I didn't fucking, oh God, I spelled that wrong. Yep. So
Oh.
I fucking fixed it and I went, like, erased, fixed it, folded it up again, closed my eyes, went to this mental space in my mind, and was like, here you go.
Here you go,
And he
T.
was like, thank you.
Oh my
And
God.
that was it, dude. I will
Can't with
never
him.
not think about that. It was so funny. I was like standing there, like it was
That's
it was
hilarious. That was
so
a good
good.
one. I like that one. That was a good one.
Thank you. I was
Well,
just floored. It was so funny.
it was. That is a good one. That's like one of, because like some people would interpret infernal energies to be formidable and punishing and consequential, but it can be so tee tongue in cheek and like, try again. It's
Yeah.
so like that
And
is so him. I can't
like,
even. Wait
right?
until
And then
Paige
look
hears
at what
that.
I'm doing in general, and I'm going from this like energy of like I'm just gonna like surf through life, and I'm diving into this energy of like I am purposefully working toward this goal. And so especially with King Belial, like from the beginning, the this relationship has been like, hey, while we're meditating, let's play chess. And I'm
Yeah.
just like, I don't play chess. I'm not a chess player. Chess can suck it. And fine, I'll sit here and play chess with you. Because from the beginning, he's been teaching me strategy, and he's been, and I'm
I
not
love
talking
that
like
symbology.
strategy specifically with business, but strategy like with life. And I feel like that is part of what my Libra heart needed, or has needed, this whole time. And this has been very consistent. Another thing that my Libra ADHD heart desperately needs. So strategy and consistency for however long. And I mean, now I'm sitting here saying, yes, I can confidently and consistently draw dead people.
Yeah, you can. So if you aren't already following Kara, please go over and do so. This has been
What
such
an
a great
intro.
Thank you, Kara, for coming on with me tonight and talking about your ways of understanding and like doing the things and like the research and like where your brain goes when you're getting in the mode and doing things, what happens after, and if you feel the same symptoms and stuff like that that's been happening. And then that little tidbit about King Belial is just so sweet. Um, if
Always
you're
will remember
interested
having
in
this
your
conversation.
own wearable altars and intuitive designs and portraits of your loved ones and guides. She has a website. She's an amazing medium. She's great and approachable, so you can definitely go follow her. If you're new to interacting with me, hit the follow button. I have a podcast with another friend of mine named Haven of the Arcane, where we talk about almost every avenue of spirituality that we have experience with. And this was tonight's first segment under that umbrella, where we're going beyond the readings, talking with other mediums and psychics that have had clients and experiences with them. If you're interested in me talking with a medium that you know, make sure you comment and suggest them, and my DMs are open. If you have any questions for our next podcast, I'd be interested to know. Otherwise, it's been a great night, and I'm going to end it out here. Thank you again, Kara, for joining me, and I can't wait to do this again.
Yeah, this was
Bye.
dope. Thank you. Bye.